Welcome to this episode on entrepreneurship development. In this episode, we will continue our discussions on the Factories Act 1948. It is one of the statutory provisions that an entrepreneur has to understand and apply in the factory that he is going to operate from. There are several provisions in the Act. The basic objectives of the Act, we had said before, and we'll repeat, are basically to regulate the working condition in the factory for the workers and to ensure that the basic requirements for safety, health, and welfare of the workers are taken care of. If these are the basic objectives of the Act, then all the provisions of the Act are aligned in order to take care of these provisions. The provisions that we will talk about in particular in this episode will pertain to the safety of the workforce. Section 40 of the Act has laid down several provisions which pertain to the safety of the industrial worker, and there are different dimensions to it. And one of the dimensions, section 21, deals with the fencing of machinery. That there are different kinds of machinery in operation in the factory. There are certain prime movers which rotate and move and vibrate, and this kind of things happen with machines in the factory. And there are transmission machineries also which also rotate or revolve or vibrate. And it is always dangerous working close to those machines, especially if you do not know how those machines work and what is the kind of movement they take up. That's the reason there's a provision in the Act which says that there has to be a fencing of the machinery. The state government has been empowered by the Act to frame rules in this regard as to what kind of machinery will have to be framed and fenced rather, and what is going to be the nature of fencing, how tall it is going to be, what material the fencing will be made of, and so on and so forth. Let's move on from there, and we talk about another provision of the Act, section 22 of the Act, which states that examination of any part of a machinery in motion will have to be carried out only by a specially trained adult male worker with tight-fitting clothing. Okay, there are machineries which are in motion when they operate, and it is felt that the people who would be required to inspect that machinery, who would be must have proper training to do so, and not only that, it will have to be an adult male worker. That means a woman worker cannot do this job. Neither can a child or an adolescent do this. It will have to be done only by an adult male worker who has got the proper training specifically for this, and he should do this only when he's wearing tight-fitting clothing. There are other provisions, like one provision deals with the employment of young persons, thereby meaning either a child or an adolescent as per the definition of the Act. Employment of such people, such young persons on dangerous machines. Now, according to section 23 of the Act, a young person must not be allowed to work on dangerous machines unless he has been fully instructed about the dangers arising in connection with the working of that machine and the precautions to be observed thereof. Okay, such persons must have received sufficient training to work at the machine and should be under adequate supervision of a person having thorough knowledge and experience of the machine. So it says that if you want a young person, by that we mean either a child or an adolescent, to work with a machine which is considered to be a moving machine or a transmitting machine, or in some way or the other the machine is not a very easy and safe kind of machine, a little dangerous to work with, then you have to first of all make sure that he has got adequate training for that, and he must also be under complete supervision of a person who has been specifically trained on that kind of a machine and has the experience of working on that kind of machine. He cannot be left unsupervised. In spite of the fact that he has been given training, he has been told about the dangers involved, in spite of the fact that all precautions have been observed, in spite of that, there has to be a complete supervision of that work carried out by a supervisor with complete knowledge, thorough knowledge and experience of having worked on that machine, not otherwise. There's a provision about the self-acting machines. There's like machines which once you start them, do activities by themselves, which do not need too much of a human intervention. That kind of machine, self-acting machines. There's a provision for those, and the section 25 of the Act states that in order to reduce accidents, no traversing part of a self-acting machine must be allowed to run within a distance of 25 centimeters from any fixed structure. So there is a gap that the machine or the moving machine has to maintain from a fixed structure in the factory, and if the space over which it will move is the one in which any person is likely to pass. Two things. One, it cannot move over an area where people are likely to walk across. It cannot overrun a passage which is used by the workers, and it cannot come sufficiently close to a fixed structure in the factory, like maybe there's a wall or a pillar or a column or something of that sort. It cannot come to a distance less than 25 centimeters from the fixed structure. Okay, so you have to make sure that the installation of the self-acting machine has to be such that it does not run over a passage to be used by the workforce, or it does not come in close vicinity of a fixed structure within the factory. Another provision deals with the casing of new machinery. Now, this is section 26 of the Act, and it states that in every factory installed after the 1st of April 1948, all machinery driven by power, every screw, every bolt, every shaft with or without pinion, and other toothed items should be properly encased or guarded. Okay, so if you have a toothed gear or something of that sort, you have to have an encasing for that. It cannot be a bare machinery which has got any of these parts. There has to be proper casing of that, or it should be guarded. They have to. Many a times you'll find there are guards. Okay, so these things will compulsorily have to be there, so as to protect any danger, arising out of the workman working on that machine. The Act also prevents persons from hiring a machine of that sort without proper casing or guarding. So the entrepreneur cannot hire a machine. He may not have bought one, but then he might have hired a machine without a proper casing or without a proper guard. Now, he cannot do that. He will be prevented by the Act from hiring a machine of that sort unless it has got a proper encasing or guarding. And there are penalties also. The offender will be punished if he does like that. The offender will be punished with imprisonment up to 3 months or fined up to rupees 500 or both concurrently. So there are penal provisions also, like if you violate this kind of a norm, there is a penalty that's attached to it. And the state government has been empowered to formulate rules specifying further safeguards to be provided in this regard. This is the bare minimum. The state government can go beyond this and frame rules which would ensure further safety of the workers working with this kind of machinery which have been hired or bought, which are new but without encasing or without a guard.
So, are there any inspections carried out regularly in these factories regarding
Yes,
these
there are
things?
provisions for carrying out of inspection on a regular basis. There are time frames specified. When the chief inspector or his appointed designated authority is given to a representative who will go there and do the inspection, and they will enter the register on the day of the inspection what they have seen. They'll submit a report. So all that is there in the provisions of the Act. There are some prohibitions of employment of women and children near certain specific tasks which generate a lot of pollutants. For example, children and women will not be allowed to work near what are called cotton openers. If you know this, if you are processing cotton, you're beating cotton, you're working with cotton. Cotton generates, raw cotton would generate a lot of very small micro particles, which would, suspended particle in the matter is going to cause a lot of pollution. People working with such things,
Respiratory problems.
It can create respiratory problems, asthmatic problems, and all that. So people, feel that it's quite dangerous to work with cotton processing, and as a matter of rule, the Act says that women and children in particular will not be allowed to work where cotton is being processed like that. Okay. There's another provision about the hoists and lifts and lifting machines and cranes, etc. We have all seen these things, I think. If you have made a visit to a factory, you would know what a hoist is, what a lift is, or what a crane is, overhead cranes and things like that. Now, according to section 28 of the Act, every hoist or lift must be properly constructed with material having sufficient strength and should also be maintained properly, because these things are prone to failure. Imagine the kind of catastrophe that would happen if a crane would fail inside a factory floor, okay, or a hoist would come down, and it could cause tremendous loss to property and life as well. So the Act says that it should be constructed out of material having sufficient strength of material and should also be properly maintained. The Act calls for examination of these equipment after every 6 months by a competent authority. Okay, so you should appoint someone who would come and inspect the crane and the state of maintenance of the crane. There are provisions in the Act which also talk about using pressure inside a plant. There are activities where you need to apply pressure above the atmospheric pressure. It is possible. Now, the section 31 of the Act says that if in any factory operation you require pressure to be applied above the atmospheric pressure, then effective arrangement has to be made to ensure that a safe working pressure is not exceeded. They also specify the safe working pressure beyond which you cannot use pressure. It also talks about the state of or the condition of the floors, the stairs, the passages, and all those. And section 32 of the Act states that in every factory, all the floors, steps, stairs, passages must be of sound construction and and they should be properly maintained and kept free from any obstruction. See, the point is, it has been found that many factories have got enough room, enough area in the workroom, but come to the passages, they are very narrow and there's overcrowding and there are obstructions. People, when working or running quickly, will not be able to see certain things, or there are obstructions. Now, that is not allowed.
On when they're exiting from the factory, there may be
Right.
a bottleneck situation.
There can be a bottleneck, and that is to be prevented. So, sufficient number of handrails will also have to be provided. I mean, people do not worry about the safety of the workers in factories as much as they need to. People will have to climb stairs, and the stairs can be quite dangerous if you do not provide side rails and handrails. So, you have to provide handrails necessarily, and that's what the Act says. And you have to make the passages clear and free, so that vision is not obstructed. All these things have been specified. It also talks about, many factories have got pits and sumps and openings in the floor, for disposal of waste and other things, or storage of material inside sumps which are underground. Now, section 33 of the Act states that pits, sumps, and tanks which are on the floor or below the floor, which have openings on the floor, should be covered and they should be properly secured. You cannot have an open pit inside the factory floor. Okay, it has to be properly covered and secured. It also goes into what is the maximum amount of weight that can be carried by an individual worker, and no excessive weight will be allowed to be carried by an individual worker. Section 34 states this, and it says that no person is to be employed in any factory to lift, carry, or move any load which is likely to cause any personal injury. You cannot expect a person to carry any amount of load. There is a restriction on that. The state government has been empowered to prescribe the maximum weight that can be lifted, carried, or moved by an individual worker. Here, the state government has got a role to play. Okay. There's another interesting provision that is to do with the protection of the eyes. There are many factories where people have to work with chemicals and things like that, which give rise to fumes, which can be quite irritating for the eyes. It could even be dangerous for the eyes. So, protection of eyes, there is a provision in the Act which says that screens or suitable goggles must be provided for the protection of the persons employed on or close to in the close vicinity of mechanical or other machines which may cause injury to the worker's eyesight. So, it's not just the overall health, but even the eyesight has to be taken care of. So, no damage to the vision vision will result. Another section of the Act deals with the dangerous fumes that originate from chemical operations mainly. Section 36 of the Act states that precautions must be taken against dangerous fumes, and people will have to be provided with masks and other protective gear. No person will be allowed to enter any confined space such as a chamber or a tank in which dangerous fumes are likely to be present or likely to originate, unless suitable measures have been taken to break the apparatus, or belts and ropes have been kept ready for evacuation of the worker from that chamber in case of an emergency. So you cannot expect a worker to go into a chamber where fumes are likely to be there in case you don't have an emergency exit or a provision to extricate him in case he starts feeling bad about it. Section 37, another provision of the Act, states that in any factory where manufacturing process produces dust, gas, fumes, etc., all practical measures have to be taken to prevent explosion. It can happen once in a while. Accidents do happen. There could be some kind of an ignition or some kind of an explosion happening in a factory, but then all suitable measures trying to prevent the occurrence of an explosion should be taken. It also deals with what would happen in the case of of a fire. What kind of provisions are there? Section 38 of the Act states that every factory has to be provided with adequate means of exit in case of a fire. The exit doors must not be locked or fastened in such a way that they cannot be opened easily from inside. There have been accidents in the past where people have been burnt inside the factory, workrooms because they could not exit, could not find the exit, or the exit was fastened from outside. The exit to be used in case of fire have to be marked in a language which is easily understood by the majority of the workforce employed. So you have to clearly mark the exit doors or windows if they are the kind of exits you have, and it should be properly displayed so people can read and understand that this is where they have to come to in the case of a fire. Okay. Section 40 of the Factories Act empowers the inspector to serve the manager with notice in writing, specifying the measures that should be adopted before a specified date for the safety of the building and machinery. In case of doing so, the inspector is empowered to prohibit the use of such building and machinery until proper repair work has been carried out. Okay. So he can really stop a particular building or stop a particular machinery from being used if he feels that proper action in trying to repair it has not been undertaken by the factory. He can actually stop the work in that building or in that machinery if he feels so. Well, there are provisions regarding the maintenance of the building also. Section 40A of the Act states that if it appears to the inspector that any building or a part of the building in a factory is in a state of disrepair and is likely to be detrimental to the health of the worker, he may serve the manager with notice in writing, specifying the measures which will have to be taken and requiring the same to be carried out before such date as specified by the order. So he can lay down a date by which the repair work has to be carried out, without which the factory will not be reopened. Finally, we talk about the provision of a safety officer. One section of the Act states that where there are 1,000 or more workers employed, in the opinion of state government, any manufacturing process or operation is carried on and it involves a risk of injury or any other hazard to the health of the employed person, the state government may require the occupier of the factory, that is the employer or the entrepreneur, to employ safety officers whose qualifications and conditions of service shall be such as may be prescribed by the state government. So in spite of the fact that there are different kinds of provisions laid down in the Act in order to ensure safety of the workforce, there will have to be safety officers appointed by the factory as per the guidelines laid down by the state government. And what should be their qualification, what should the terms of employment of such safety officers will also have to be specified, will be specified by the state government, and the factory or the employer will have to abide by those guidelines. Okay. So these are some of the important provisions regarding the safety of the workforce that are enshrined in the Factories Act of 1948. Now, from here, let's look at some of the other provisions which deal with the welfare of the workforce. We have talked about the safety, we have talked about the health considerations of the workers. Now let's turn our attention to what provisions are there in the Act which would encourage welfare of the workforce, and how the employer or the entrepreneur can play a significant role in trying to ensure that the workers work there happily and there's some welfare measure in place. Some of the facilities are quite down to earth, like washing facilities. Okay. According to Section 42 of the Act, separate and adequate washing facilities conveniently accessible to the male and female workers must be provided and maintained. Like you can imagine people who work in factories for long hours, 8 hours for a shift, maybe double shift they are doing, and there are dusts and fumes as we talked about, and clothes can get dirty. You might need to wash clothes also in the course of your duty at the factory. Now, where are the provisions for those? There have to be separate washing areas for such things, and where men and women can visit separately and do their washing there. And those will also have to be maintained in a clean and hygienic condition, is what the Act is saying. It will also have to, the factory that is, will also have to provide facilities for storing and drying of clothes. when clothes are cleaned by the workers in the course of their work in the factory, they will need drying of the clothes because they don't have too many options to change into. So according to section 43 of the Act, the state government can make rules requiring the provisions of suitable places for keeping the clothing not worn during the working hours or the wet clothing. Where will they keep it? So you have to have spaces earmarked for that. Facilities for seating. Okay, according to section 44 of the Act, suitable arrangement for sitting should be provided and maintained for all the workers who have to work in a standing position. Now you cannot say as an employer that your work needs you to keep standing, so there's no seating arrangement for you. You cannot say that. He will have to take rest once in a while, and he or she will have to sit down. So there has to be a provision for him or her to sit down when she wants to take rest and when she does not want to work. Okay, so that they may get the advantage of taking rest during the course of the work. According to section 45 of the Act, at least one first aid box having prescribed contents should be kept in all the factories. Further, there should be at least one first aid box or cupboard for 150 workers employed at a time. Okay, if there are 150 workers, you should have at least one cupboard containing first aid medicines and equipment and other accessories. The Act also suggests that each first aid box and cupboard shall be kept in charge of a separate person who holds a certificate in first aid. Okay, and shall be always available during the working hours. It's not enough merely to say that I have got a first aid box and it contains what it needs to contain. There is a list of what it should contain. Those will have to be present in the first aid box, and there has to be a person who is in charge of that box, who knows about first aid, has got training in that area, and he's available during the hours of work in the factory. It's not that he's not available, that will not do. He'll have to be available, he'll be on duty. The first aid register should also always be kept along with the box where 500 or more workers are employed. There should be an ambulance room also, staffed by a doctor, a compounder, and a nurse, and it should be equipped with at least the minimum prescribed articles. Such factories should also have an ambulance van which should be available on call. Okay, it can be a very severe accident, and he might be required to be shifted to a hospital or a nursing home. In that case, there should be an ambulance available on call. Okay, if the first aid will do, that's fine. If it does not, if he needs to be shifted to a hospital, and as I say, there has to be a team of doctors, compounders, and nurses taking care of him locally. But then he may have to be shifted out and transferred to a hospital. So an ambulance should also be available on call. That provision is there in the Act. Okay. These are in fact measures which cater to health as well as safety, both, and welfare. In fact, they are rounded off in a manner that they account for all these provisions. There is a provision for canteen. Section 46 of the Act states that canteen facilities should be provided in factories where 250 or more workers are employed. The state government is empowered to make rules pertaining to the date by which the canteen should be provided, the standards in respect of construction, accommodation, furniture, and other equipment for the canteen, the constitution of the managing committee for the canteen. There is a managing committee who would run the canteen, and what is the constitution for that managing committee? And there has to be representation of the workers in that committee of which would run the canteen. So there are specific provisions pertaining to that. And what kind of food stuff would be allowed to be served in that canteen and what will not be allowed to be served, and what kind of charges will be levied for what kind of food stuff. These are also specified by the provisions of the Act. Okay, so these are to take care of the canteen facilities. There is a provision regarding the shelter, restrooms, and lunch rooms also. Now, if you have gone to a factory, you will have seen a lunch room, I think, where people assemble during the lunch break and have their food there. Section 47 of the Factories Act states that every factory where more than 150 workers are employed, adequate and suitable shelter or restrooms and suitable lunch rooms, sufficiently lighted and ventilated, along with provision for drinking water, where the workers can have the meals which they bring from home, must be provided and maintained in a clean and hygienic condition. So where the workers get food from home, they would be allowed to go to that lunch room and have their food there, and those rooms will also have to be properly maintained. Proper illumination, proper ventilation will have to be there. Proper cleanliness will have to be maintained. So this accounts for the lunch duration during which the workers would take rest and have lunch and maybe take a break from work. It should be a good break for them, and they feel charged up and come back for work with sufficient energy. So I think there are more provisions on the welfare aspect, and we have little time left, and therefore we are having to close down this episode here. But then we come back and discuss a little more about some of the other provisions which are there in the Act regarding the welfare and the well-being of the workers. We talk about a creche and a welfare officer and things like that. But then for this episode, I think we are done. And unless you have any questions, we will close down.
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.